Okay, guys, so what I wanted to do is kind of put together a run through of the meta that you may see at a states tournament. So let's start with the most common. Right now, Goblin King is super powerful. He got a nerf, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's go ahead and go through this guy. What you'll see him at is probably 75 points, being a support piece instead of a main attacker. Things that you need to focus on is, one, he does not have power cosmic. You can outwit the powers shown on his dial. Now, he can choose 2 powers during his turn, and he can use those freely, and you can't do anything about those. So if he decides to choose impervious or combat reflexes, or he says he has prog control and range combat expert, you can't do anything about that. But top dial, you can outwit his teleportation, and you can outwit his invulnerability if you so choose to. Let's go ahead and talk about his powers. The first one is forced to relive your worst nightmare. Basically, all that is when you attack Goblin King and you miss, you get a nightmare token put on your character. And when that character attacks Goblin King again, they'll take a -1 to their attack. That's all that is. Now, another thing is the Infinity Gauntlet, where Goblin King can take a free action and choose 2 standard powers. Again, he could choose Prop Control and Perplex, or Range Combat Expert and Precision Strike, Running Shot, Pulse Wave. A lot of people might do Hypersonic. So, important thing to note with the nerf, number one, the big one is he lost Power Cosmic on his low point dials. The second one is he can only use the chosen powers until that player's next turn. So previously, he was able to keep something like Sidestep after choosing it. So he would choose Sidestep on turn 1, then on turn 2, he could again use Sidestep and then pick 2 new powers. He can't do that anymore. So he chooses his powers, and then on his next turn, he loses those powers and then has to choose again. Okay, the next big one is Hakim Thunder. Now this guy is something else. He starts off with Sidestep, Energy Shield Deflection, and Prop Control. This guy's special is that he can pick any 2 powers, but his list is limited, unlike Goblin King. At the beginning of your turn, choose 2 standard powers, but only one of those powers may be a defense power, Hypersonic Speed, Outwit, Perplex, or Pulse Wave. Hakim Thunder can use the chosen powers until your next turn. Alright, so the importance of that power. At the beginning of your turn, choose 2 standard powers. Let's start there. So, your opponent begins his turn, he needs to choose those powers in the beginning kind of phase. At this time, he can Outwit, Perplex, Sidestep, take any number of free actions, but the moment he takes an action, a regular non-free action, and has not chosen his 2 powers, it is too late. I will repeat that. If your opponent takes an action that is not a free action, it is too late for them to go back and choose powers. You can pick and choose how competitive you want to play, but that is what the card says, and no one's going to fault you if you try to stick to that. So, actually looking at the character's dial, you have a Sidestep of 10, so he's able to move around freely and get in positions. He has an attack of 11, which is pretty good. He has a defense of 18. Alright, so no reducer top dial, but he's got Energy Shield Deflection, so you're looking at a 20 defense against ranged attacks. Plus he's got Prop Control, so that's going to hurt trying to get a hit in on him. Now I'm going to tell you, most people run stuff on this guy, and I'll get to that a little bit later, to give him those reducers without him having to choose his defense powers. So let's talk about the powers he can choose. He can choose a defense power, or Hypersonic Speed, Outwit, Perplex, or Pulse Wave, but not double of any of that. So he cannot choose, say, Impervious and Pulse Wave using this power. Now he can through other means, but not on here. He can't choose Outwit and Perplex. He can't choose Hypersonic Speed and combat reflexes. He can't do those things. He can't choose Running Shot, Pulse Wave. He can't choose Super Senses and Shape Change. He can choose hypersonic speed and shape change. He can choose any number of things, but cannot be a combination of those powers listed on his card. Okay, so the next one is the Joker, and you guys have already seen a lot of him in tournament play. So this guy's special thing is that instead of having HeroClix, he basically has these tokens that as you do damage and make him cross his blue and red lines, he ends up taking the tokens off and you score 10 points at the end of the match, whether you KO him or not. The first trait, when building your force, the Joker costs 10 points for each escape token you place on his card. Minimum is 3, maximum 5. And the thing is, a lot of players will play him at 30 points because that's 18 clicks and most people aren't going to waste their time getting tied up with this figure. They're going to try and focus on the actual threats. But let me put this out there. This guy can be highly effective. Like, I've been really surprised. I ended up rolling Blaze Claw's Fangs with this guy. Awesome advantage with this guy. You have his dial on the back of his card. If you're going to take damage from an attack, you can go ahead and plan ahead to what click he will land on. So if you know he's going to land on Blaze Claw's Fangs and exploit weakness, go ahead and move him up. Make your opponent attack him, land on the click you want, and wreak some havoc. His second trait is at the beginning of your turn you may roll a d6 and have the result. When you do, either heal or damage the Joker that many clicks, and he can heal past his starting line. Okay, so you basically let this guy get attacked. If he crosses one of those lines, he'll lose a token. So one way you can mitigate that is at the beginning of your turn, you can roll the dice. If you roll a 6, you can either heal him 3 or damage him 3. So when would you want to do that? You don't have to every turn. But if you're on click 5, you might want to go ahead and heal him 3, bringing him up to click 2. Or if he was on click, I can't even imagine you would do this on click 1. But if you wanted to go ahead and do something like damage him to get him on click 3, roll 6 and you're on click 4 at that point, and next thing you know you have flurry and combat reflexes. So that way he can get in some attacks on somebody and just kind of tie them up. He's mostly a tie-up piece. That's where he's most effective. People put other things on him to make him more useful, but number one is tie-up piece. Top dial, he has outwit. That's fantastic. He also has traded sidestep and super senses, so he doesn't have any way to reduce damage, but you can easily miss him if your opponent rolls a 5 or 6 and you don't have precision strike. He's just there to aggravate you and get you to waste actions on him. Okay, so the next one is Ironheart, and I know no one at our venue runs her, but she's become pretty popular ever since Howard won Worlds using her. So armor's falling apart on me. Ironheart's trait begins the game with 1 broken armor token. When she is dealt damage, instead roll a d6 that can't be re-rolled. If the result is equal to or less than the number of broken armor tokens, she is KO'd. If not, turn her to that click number and give her another broken armor token. This can be ignored. Okay, so why would somebody want to run this figure? This figure has a decent defense at 18. It has outwit, it has prop control, and it has perplex on its dial. It has flight and sidestep, so it can do a measly carry. But at 25 points, it's a good support piece. It can tie up opponents like Haha Joker. If you run a character up there, if you had a Goblin King and you were foolish enough to run up and attack this figure, and you hit it for 4 damage, that person, all they do is roll a d6, and if they don't get a 1 or something, or whatever the number of tokens is on this figure, then it's not KO'd. It just keeps getting more and more tokens. Now, you could probably guess that this thing will survive 2, maybe even 3 hits, but that's probably it. But that's enough to tie up, and if your opponent wasted 2 or 3 actions on a 25-point dial, you're doing okay. Like, that's good. Make them waste those actions. Make them eat up time. That's less damage for your main figures, and they're just putting you on your support powers. Top dial, outwit, sidestep, she can carry. Fantastic. Next click in case you want to push her, because it doesn't hurt her in any way. You have prop control, excellent, and right next to it is perplex and sidestep. So fantastic for a low point figure. This one's a chase. Okay, so Namor. Namor is not really considered a competitive meta figure, but he is a fan favorite with some people. And I want to talk about pogs for a minute. So this guy, if you've played me at the venue, you've seen that I've run double Namors, and I just generate a mad amount of pogs. This guy's power, Imperious Rex, give Namor a power action to place adjacent Atlantean Warrior Bystander, or give Namor a double power action to place adjacent 2 Atlantean Warrior Bystanders. You may not use this power if there are more than 4 Atlantean Warrior You may not use this power if there are more than 4 Atlantean Warrior Bystanders on your force. Okay, so let me go ahead and clarify something with Imperious Rex. If your opponent has 4 tokens out, 4 of these Atlantean Warriors, he can use this power again and generate up to 6. If he has 5 out on the field, he cannot use the power. You cannot use the power if you have more than 4. That is semantics, but it's very important to note that. The other thing that I've ran into with people is they think that, okay, if you've got 2 Namors, if you've got 4 or more Atlantean Warriors out by 1 Namor, or a combination of the 2, that's it. You can't produce anymore. But that's not true. Imperious Rex keys off of that figure. So what I do to keep track of things, I have 1 Namor designated as Namor Blue, who, when he generates his pogs, I use blue tokens, and the other one I use red tokens, or I might use Spider-Man action tokens and Superman action tokens. But the point is, I won't confuse which Namor put out which tokens, because both of them can put out to 6, which is pretty awesome. And both of them get to use King of Atlantis. Other friendly characters with the Atlantis keyword modify their attack value by +1. Namor can use leadership. So he does a couple of cool things. Double leadership means that he can give you 2 more actions per turn. King of Atlantis gives the Atlantean Warriors +1 attack, so I think that bumps them up to an 11. And they have an 11 attack. They have charge for 4, I think. They have close combat expert with 2 damage. So normally they'll be swinging for 2. Close combat expert, they can go 11-4. The Atlantean Warriors' movement does not cost an action, so they can move freely on the board. But once they do like a charge or an attack, that is an action. So a little heads up on this character. All you have to do to really get this character down is hit him with 1 attack of penetrating psychic blast. Imperious Rex only works on his top 3 clicks. After that, he becomes a charge super strength with empower and toughness. Not great at all. Not great at all. So do 2 clicks of damage to him with penetrating psychic blast, super easy, and he goes down. He's super weak. What I usually like to do is run him around the board and prevent people from doing damage to him. If everyone's familiar with what happened with Steven did 1 click of damage to this character in our last tournament. And I knew at that point I only had that click and another click of Imperious Rex. So if he were to do 2 more clicks to my characters, they would lose their whole purpose for being on the team. And that's why I ran them away. So for a figure like this, try to be careful not to waste too much energy on the pogs. They are worth 0 points. But going after these figures that generate the pogs should be your number 1 concern. Do not turtle. Do not play slow. Go up in there. Run your figures up there. Get these pog generating characters off the board, or make it to where they cannot do what they're there to do. Devil Dinosaur is another popular pog generating figure. And again, his top 3 clicks are the only ones that generate pogs. So if you can get this guy down, you'll be okay. Now, I'll go ahead and give you a heads up. The normal way someone takes out this character is they use an ID card. And I'll explain that in a minute, to bring out Nick Fury, and he one-shots this character off of his pog generating clicks. I'll get to all that in a minute. Let's go ahead and go over this guy. First off, I'm going to go ahead and say he's giant size. He's not a colossal, but he's giant size. But he cannot carry. He has sidestep. He has a regular move of 2, so he can move a total of 4 per turn, but he cannot carry anybody. His unusual weapons of mass destruction gives him the ability to... Unusual weapons of mass destruction is where you can give Devil Dinosaur a power action. If there are no bystander tokens placed by him on the map, choose one type of bystander on this card you haven't chosen this game and place 3 of them within 3 squares in line of fire. So basically, this guy can put out 3 pogs at one time, and I'll talk about the pogs in just a moment. The important thing to know is that all 3 of those pogs have to be gone before he can throw out 3 more. So what this guy will do, he will turtle, slowly walking up and send out these pog figures to go and harass you and make you come to him. That's one way he's popular. Okay, so what else does he have? Cliche villainous monologue. Devil Dinosaur can use toughness. When Devil Dinosaur would take damage from an attack, he takes 1 unavoidable damage instead. This can be countered or ignored. That's his defense power. You cannot outwit this power. You cannot use Pulse Wave to get around it. You will have to do damage to him or use something like Peggy Carter or Nick Fury, which I mentioned earlier, to take him out. Pretty much, you just need to focus on doing 3 clicks of damage to this guy and getting him off of his Pog generating dial. It's a slow thing to take out Devil Dinosaur, but if you go ahead and focus on him early, before he starts bringing out all of his stuff, it's effective. His 3 pogs that he pulls out are Rockabilly Modocs, which are a very short running shot penetrating Psychic Blast. The other one are Drop Bears, which are really dangerous, that have a charge Blaze Claw's Fangs. Those guys can be really dangerous because one moment you're fine, next thing you know you've got 6 damage coming your way. And the last one is the Suicide Murder Crabs. I might have that name wrong. And they can Pulse Wave for 1. So they're not necessarily the biggest threat, even though they have Pulse Wave, but they can get around a lot of things and just kind of cause problems, especially if they get around a group of your characters. Alright, so his last power is Hairy Live Birth Nut Eating Skin Monsters. It's a stop click. Devil Dinosaur can use Battle Fury. Devil Dinosaur can be healed above this click for the rest of the game. Alright, so anytime you do damage to this guy and you knock him onto this stop click on his damage powers, that is where he stops. And that's where everyone tries to get him at. It's like you can knock him onto that click and leave him alone for the rest of the game. He's not a concern. I mean, the only reason why you go after him after this point is just to get those points. Okay, so the next one up is the legendary, the original sin, Nick Fury. This guy used to be the biggest contender in HeroClix. This guy is so nasty that even as the meta has changed over time, he still shows up, either as a full dial figure or as a call-in with an ID card. And let me go ahead and explain that real quick to you. ID cards are these 5-point, kind of like plastic cards that you can give a character an action token who does not currently have an action token and bring in a character of equal or less points as them. So you bring in Nick Fury, he has to stay within 5 squares of the character. He cannot be carried. If the other character leaves his area, then he gets removed off the board. So if that character is carried or anything, then he'll disappear. If he's damaged, he disappears. At the beginning of your next turn, he disappears. Your opponent can KO a call-in character, and they'll get points. That's why for the longest time in the meta, you had some games where people were scoring over 600 points on a 300-point game. But let's go ahead and talk about Nick Fury. Some people might be running 1 or 2 of these guys as their actual team. And if they're running them together, I want you to take note of the shield team ability. The important part of that is that it increases their range by +1 being adjacent to each other. So instead of being a 9 range, he'll be a 10 range. With his Spy Satellite improved targeting, he ignores elevated terrain, ignores hindering terrain, and ignores characters. That's what made him so deadly. This guy would get put on top of a cliff face or a map with just ridiculous elevation, and he would blast away from halfway across the map, taking out characters, and they couldn't retaliate until they got up there next to him. So, highly dangerous, excellent figure. Cosmic Assassin, Guardian of Earth. Nick Fury can use Shape Change. This is a trait, so make sure you understand this. He has traded Shape Change. When Nick Fury targets only the highest point opposing character with an attack, modify his attack and damage values by +1, and he deals penetrating damage. So, if this guy is called out or he's, the main attacker on a team, he comes over and he's going to shoot you, and if he goes for your biggest character, he's going to do penetrating damage, he's going to do 4 clicks, and he's going to ignore elevated terrain, hindering, and he's going to ignore characters he might use. The only way you can kind of hinder this guy is to use blocking terrain. You can use walls. You can use this is the super rare Green Lantern from Joker's Wild. There's a couple of different tricks you can use to kind of hinder him. But be careful being out in the open or trying to hide behind elevated terrain if you see a level 7 ID card on your opponent's side of the table. The last thing, which was really, really strong, was Watcher's Eyes to see your secrets. Nick Fury can use probability control. Give Nick Fury a free action and choose a power that an opposing character within range and line of fire can use. That character can't use that power until your next turn. That is what we call an uber outwit. Basically, right now, as the game is, there's multiple ways to give powers to other figures that they can use. Goblin King, for example, can use 2 additional powers of his choosing. He does not possess those powers. On his low end dial of 75, he doesn't have power Cosmic, but if he chooses Impervious and Pulse Wave, normally you cannot outwit those. Nick Fury can take those powers away because his wording says you cannot use those powers. So that is an uber outwit and almost gets through everything. This guy was amazing because for the longest time you had so many characters doubling up on defense powers, and this guy came in and just said, no, we take it all away and I'm going to shoot you for 4 damage. Probably 5 because people ran a little green monkey with him all the time. So, excellent figure. Things to take note of. Top dial, he has stealth. He'll probably have some way to up his defense with Impervious via a Possessor or something, and I'll cover that in a little bit. He has Prop Control, Shape Change traded, Toughness, and you can get through Shape Change using Battle Fury. Not usually that common to try and do that, but what you will do is you'll attack him probably with a Penetrating Psychic Blast or something, and he'll roll a Shape Change. He's got Prob. Watch out for those things. He's definitely killable. You do 4 clicks to him, and you're going to put him on click 5. He's nearly dead. If you do 5 clicks of damage, make sure you have something to back you up. If you can knock him on 1 click, if you can do 1 click of damage to him, you knock him on his weaker set of powers. Sidestep, Precision Strike, 17 Defense, Toughness, and Perplex. What you end up doing is trying to get rid of his Prob Control, and you're trying to get rid of his Uber Outwit. So he's weakest on click 2 and 5. Try to do more than 5 damage to him if you can, and try to one-shot this guy. Otherwise, have 2 characters ready to run up and attack him and get rid of him as quickly as possible because he can race heck against you. If you can't get up there and knock him out, go ahead and base him. Put a character like Haha Joker right there in his face. Even though he has ignore characters, he cannot shoot outside of melee combat. So if he's based with someone like Haha Joker, he can't turn around and target your Goblin King. He's got to fight Haha Joker or try to sidestep and break away, or if he's got, on stealth, he's got to just move and get away from Haha. Okay, so this guy, Hawkeye, you won't see on teams as a regular figure. You're going to see him as a level 7 ID call-in. You'll see players with level 7 ID and characters on their sideline, including Nick Fury, Shield Hulk, and this Hawkeye. and at the beginning of the game they have to choose one of those figures to attach to that level 7 ID. So when they use it, they call him in. This guy is kind of like a one-trick pony. He ignores hindering terrain and ignores characters for targeting. He has a rapid-fire trick shooting. Hawkeye can use running shot each time Hawkeye hits an opposing character with a range attack. After action is resolved, he can use running shot again as a free action, but only to target a character that wasn't attacked this turn. It's not that important to note, but I will. The damage depletion modifier, which is where if you do multiple attacks outside of flurry during a turn, your damage keeps going down by 1. He has precision strike, so if he hits, he will always do 1 damage. So what this guy can do is basically running shot, move around, shoot one of your characters, shoot another character, shoot another character. He can shoot your entire army, but take note of 2 things. This guy cannot move 5 squares away from the character that brought him in. Well, he can move up to 5 squares away from the character that brought him in. Otherwise, he disappears. The second thing is his main use is to take out Bizarro Green Arrow. Because when he shoots a character adjacent to Bizarro Green Arrow, that Bizarro Green Arrow becomes the target. And he can keep shooting at the other figures, and Green Arrow keeps becoming the target. And so it's a weird illegal hack that'll just whittle that figure down and KO him. So he's being ran on people's teams as a nerf to that character. Another strong ID call-in that you will see is Nightwing. You will not see this character on forces normally, only as an ID call-in, and the main reason why is because as a free action, he can generate a pog that can use support to heal other characters. But let's go ahead and cover his abilities anyways. First, he has Batman Ally, so he has stealth. The next thing is his improved movement. Ignore elevated terrain, ignores hindering terrain. So this guy, he can move around pretty good. Nightwing can use charge and flurry. Nightwing can target opposing characters with close combat attacks regardless of elevation. So he can charge up to somebody and flurry them with an 11 attack, 3 damage. Second City Saint is his defense power. Nightwing can use combat reflexes and defend. When Nightwing is the target of a ranged combat attack, he can use super senses. So he's going to be pretty solid no matter what the situation is.